I'd like to talk to you about pop-up tents, or as they're also called, folding marquees, instant shades, quick tops, instant gazebos, portable gazebos, quick shades. There's a whole range of names for them, but essentially what we're talking about are these here, folding pop-up tents that can be easily packed up, taken to an event, set up, used for the day, and then folded up and brought home. Over the years of selling pop-up tents, I've been asked pretty much every question in the book about what we can use them for and the different applications. But really, if I was to boil it down, there have been about 5 main questions that I've been asked over and over again. And today, what I'd like to do is try and answer each of those 5 questions for you. So at the end of this short video, you're much more informed about what is the best type of folding marquee or pop-up tent for you and your uses. So, those 5 questions are, firstly, which is the best type of pop-up tent for me? Secondly, I'm often asked about the frame. Is aluminium best or steel? What should I be looking for? Thirdly, the canopy. People are very concerned about the type of canopy. Is it going to give me adequate shade? Is it going to be waterproof enough for me? So we'll look at those questions. Another important question that I get asked often is, where are these things made? So we'll talk a little bit about that and just show you the various places. And the final question, of course, is price. How much should you expect to pay for a really good pop-up tent that is going to do the job for you? So let's look at each of those 5 questions in detail. And the first one is, what is the best type of pop-up tent for me? So, when it comes to buying the best type of pop-up tent, well, really there is no one best type. It's really all about the job that you're intending to use it for. If you're wanting to use it for weekend use, the markets, just an occasional use, then one of these lighter steel frame units is perfectly adequate. They're very simple, one person can set them up all by themselves. They're light, they come with guy ropes which can hold them on windy days, and really that's all you need. If on the other hand you're wanting to use it for a more professional application, let's just say you're a club or a sporting group and the person who buys the unit isn't necessarily the person who'll be setting it up on a day-to-day basis, then you might want to consider something more robust, like a pro unit. These are much stronger. They have a stronger frame and a heavier canopy. And really this canopy is also very important if you're buying a unit to use for a club application, because when you're going to the trouble of printing your company logo or your club's name on the lance and up on the peak, you really want a canopy and a fabric that's going to look good and last for many years. And going for the lighter, more cheaper product isn't really going to serve you as well. So really it's all about what you're wanting to use it for. The lighter duty ones, essentially, if you're setting it up yourself at the markets or on occasional camping or weekend use, and the heavier duty Pro series, if you're going to be using it on a regular basis, and many people will be using it, setting it up and knocking it about. Essentially there are 2 types of frames to consider: steel and aluminium. Aluminium are probably considered to be superior because of their lightweight and they're very strong. On aluminium frames, one of the benefits is to have the frame anodized, and that just gives it an outer coating which makes it really resistant to wear and scratches. With the steel frames, you'll find that usually they've been treated with a powder coating finish. And that's not only to make the frame look nice, it's also to give it that prevention or that treatment against rust. Very important. But overall, you really would be considering that an aluminium frame, dollar for dollar, pound for pound, is superior to a steel frame. Another one of the most important things to think about if you're purchasing a really top-of-the-line pop-up tent are these joints. Here you can see that these joints are metal, cast alloy, which makes them really strong, and they're bolted together with stainless steel nuts and bolts. Compare that to over here, where you're going to see that these joints are plastic, again, that's where the strength of the marquee comes from. These joints are perfectly adequate for occasional use and weekend use and going to the markets, but it's obvious that a plastic joint isn't going to be nearly as strong or robust as one of those cast alloy joints that we just saw. What we thought would be really interesting here is to just take the canopy off the frame and show you a naked frame and just show you how easily it can go up and down without the canopy on. That way you'll get a sense of how the concertina action works to open and close it. So if I ask for a little bit of help here, we'll quickly do that. So there you have that, the frame up and down without the canopy on, very simple. One very important thing that you should consider when purchasing a frame is, are the parts interchangeable? Because let's face it, sometimes things do break. The struts can get bent if the marquee tips over in a windstorm, and really we want to be able to easily interchange the parts. Call up the company that you purchased the item from with a quick couple of minutes of work with a screwdriver, pull out the bent piece and replace them with new pieces. So interchangeable parts are one of the most important things you should consider when buying your marquee. What I'd like to talk to you now about are the canopies and the different types of fabrics we use on the canopies and why you would choose one over the other. So here we have a canopy, and what we've done is just lay some canopies out on the desk here, and I'd like to quickly just work through each of them and talk about their relative merits. So essentially there are two types of fabrics that are used on pop-up tents: polyester and PVC. Polyester is very popular because it's light, and when you get to a good weight, it's quite waterproof as well. So a lightweight would be considered 150 denier. That would be a really cheap, bottom of the line one that would give you some shade protection and some shower protection. Then you would move through a 300 denier, which would be considered waterproof, up to a 500 denier, which would be top of the line and really giving you excellent rain protection as well as good shade. One thing you might consider when looking at a pop-up tent and the canopy is, has the fabric been treated with a PVC coating? That's just another layer or level of protection which really ensures that if you need the fabric to be waterproof, it is waterproof. This is a 500 denier canopy, and you can see that's the same canopy for a 3 metre square tent as to opposed to a 300 denier canopy. It's just that much bigger and bulkier. We then want to consider PVC. Now, many people will consider PVC to be the top of the range when it comes to the fabric or the canopy on their pop-up tent. But don't be so confused, or don't think that that's always the case. The reason is PVC is so much heavier. And looking at this, you can see that this is the canopy for a 3x3 marquee, and it weighs around about 18 kilograms. Whereas this one, it weighs about 11 kilograms. And let's just look at that. You can see how flexible the polyester is when you're using it, whereas the PVC is much more rigid. So really what this does, if you're using polyester using the PVC canopy, it tends to make the whole frame much harder to open, and really you can't close the canopy up and leave this canopy on the frame. It's much too stiff. So you really need to remove the PVC canopy every time you collapse the frame. That's just something to bear in mind. One of the questions I get asked over and over again is, where are these pop-up tents made? And to be completely honest with you, most of them are now made in China. Sure, there are a few locally made ones, but the vast majority are made in China. You can see here from this particular picture that the factories are very high quality in China. And as a consumer, I think the important questions you should be asking yourself are, one, when I buy it from a local company, is that company going to give me a good warranty? At least 12, maybe even 2 years on the frame. And the second question you should be asking are, if one of the parts breaks, can I easily get interchangeable or replacement parts? If the answer to both those two questions is yes, then you can probably buy the pop-up tent with confidence, knowing that it's made in China, but you're buying it from a local supplier. The final question I'd like to address is the price and what you should expect to pay for your pop-up tent. Look, you can pick them up for as little as $100 from a local hardware, and if you're going to use it for the outdoors in your garden or on the weekends, that may be adequate for you. But really, for a good quality 3x3 pop-up tent, you'd be looking at around about the $250 to $300 mark. And that's going to be one that you can use at the markets, at weekend events, sporting events and so forth, and it should last you for a few years. If you're a club or a sporting organisation and you're wanting to have a really professional quality marquee, then for a 3x3 metre square unit, you'd be looking to pay up around the $800 to $1,000 mark. And what you're getting there is a very heavy duty frame, a very heavy duty canopy, and probably you're going to want to go to the trouble of printing the marquee and having your logo on it. And this is where buying a high quality canvas or a high quality polyester canopy is really a great investment, because buying a cheaper unit, the canvas is going to perish and the thread won't last you for so long. So really, you can see that you can pay anywhere from $100 to $1,000. It's really just what you're proposing to use it for. So I hope that answers a few of your questions about pop-up tents. What we've talked about today are the types of frames, the types of canopies. We've talked about where they're made, and we've also talked about what you should be paying for a pop-up tent. Please feel free to give us a call and talk about your needs. We're here to answer any of your questions. Thank you very much.